I'm not sure what's happening.
So I think we're gonna go live. Everyone. Okay. You ready, sister?
Yes,
Okay, let me know.
already.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hamza Reed, and I am the Director of Operations here at the Multicultural Center. And I'd like to welcome all of you to our Family First Center's weekly Wednesday webinar. Alhamdulillah, now presented in cooperation with ISGH and Anissa Hope Center. This webinar is presented every Wednesday at 11 a.m. The format usually consists of a short presentation followed by a question and answer session at the end, where we will field questions from the audience down in the chat box below. Today's topic is resilience through adversity, and will be presented by Sister Shahrzad Yekta. A little bit about Sister Shahrzad. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, behavioral health consultant, and coach with over 8 years of experience. Some of her areas of expertise include couple counseling, adolescent counseling, family counseling, trauma, crisis management, depression, and anxiety management. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Sister Shahrzad.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, as always. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here for what is now the last of my presentations for 2020. I can't believe it's been doing this since March, I believe, the March or April. And here we are. I thought resilience would be the perfect topic to talk about today, because if you are watching this at any time, just know that you have made it. You are resilient. We have exactly 22 days left of 2020. So if we've made it this far, then you bet that you are resilient. So I thought it would be a perfect topic to talk about because we all need the reminder, that what resiliency is, and a reminder that, all of us are resilient, because sometimes, I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, I used to think, when the first time, I heard about the word resiliency, I used to think, well, you either got it or you don't. You were either born with it or you just not. So if you are going through a hard time and you're depressed or you're anxious, then you're probably not resilient, or if you are crying about something, then you're not resilient. But as I, of course, learned more and experienced more of life, I figured out that absolutely not. That is cannot be further from the truth, that in fact, some of the most resilient people that I have met in my life have been the clients that I have worked with, who have gone through some of the hardest times in life, some of the adversity, and everything that they've experienced has been some of the toughest things. So those were some of the most resilient people that I have worked with. And so I thought it would be a perfect topic to talk about, because all of us, I would, I make this comment with sort of a confidence, maybe I shouldn't, but I say all of us, I don't say most of us, because I do believe that all of us has experienced some sort of adversity going through 2020 with so many different things happening. So I think it's time to acknowledge our resilience, and also know that the resilience is a muscle we can build with practice. And if we don't feel like we are coping well with everything that has happened, then it's a good time for us to start practicing, to acknowledge our resiliency, first of all, because we are here, we have made it, but also to start practicing some other things to help us get through, what's about to come, and also help ourselves maybe recover a little bit from, everything that we have experienced in the past few months. So resiliency is basically our ability to be able to recover from or adjust to a change. It's basically, when a strained body that's been deformed by something recovers its shape and size to kind of go back to some sort of a new form, or maybe back to its original form. So resilience is not all unicorns and rainbows. It doesn't look pretty. Like when you call someone resilient, it doesn't mean that they have it all together and everything is perfect, so you call that person resilient. That cannot be, as I mentioned, further from the truth. It's not like that. Resiliency is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with. Resiliency is something you develop through actions that you take, through through things that you practice to be able to help yourself remain flexible in a face of a crisis, in a face of a change that's very difficult for you. And all of us have had to somehow adjust or have experienced some sort of a change in 2020, whether it be loss of a job, loss of a loved one. There is a lot of food insecurity that's happening right now. There's a lot of housing insecurity that's happening right now. We have, our political climate is not very friendly right now. So there's so much that can put a strain on us, that can stress us out. And through all of that, we can find ourselves to be more resilient and do things that will help us cope with those things better, that as a result helps us more resilient. So I like to go through some things that will help us do that. Also, basically those are ways that we, as human beings, we've always found ways to survive. So these could be our survival methods through this crisis. And also through that we become more resilient, or we acknowledge the resilience that already is within us. So the first thing that we have been talking about for the longest time, I think probably at every single time that I've talked about anxiety, or I have talked about sleep problems, I've talked about the chaos that's happening, the chaos that's around us, and the importance for us to be able to find a routine, to be able to find something that is familiar for us, that's routine, that we know we can count on every single day. So developing a routine in a face of change, however small or large the change is, well, of course, right now the change is very large in our lives. So developing a routine and finding a way to be able to do something consistently can help us, get through the change, get through the crisis, whatever it may be. So we've talked about the routine can be something very simple. It could be you getting up, having, making sure that you have breakfast every morning, making sure that you eat something every morning, making sure that maybe you get some exercise in the morning, having a work routine, making sure you take breaks in between your work, maybe setting aside time where you're able to spend time with your family, or have, if you're not able to see them, have phone calls or Zoom calls with your family member. Whatever the routine looks like, it doesn't matter. You tailor it to however it fits your life. But developing a routine in the face of crisis can really help us pull through and build that resiliency muscle that we were talking about. And finding something that will help us feel calmer also is very important. Last month when I was talking about sleep, I was talking about finding things that will help you calm down right before bedtime. It's the same thing. What helps you feel calmer is not necessarily going to be the same thing as the next person. So find what calms you down. It could be prayer. Prayer helps a lot of people, especially through a time like this where so much is out of our control. And there's so much that we cannot change, we can't do anything about. So prayer helps because it sort of takes some things that we already know is out of our control and puts it in a higher powers, in a higher power's hand, basically. But prayer can help you feel calm down. Whether it's mindfulness, maybe you can practice mindfulness in many different ways. Mindfulness is basically being present to whatever experience that you're having. One of the ways that I like to practice, well, I should say I liked to, this is definitely past tense, was to go sit at coffee shops and, just watch people that come and go as I have my coffee. This was my favorite thing to do, favorite mindfulness practice, because it put me exactly in the present. I was watching the people, I was watching their reactions, their conversations, their moods and everything. But this practice of mindfulness can be anything, anything that you wish. It could be eating your food mindfully. It could be going about your day mindfully, taking time out to just throughout the day to just observe your emotions and see what you're going through. And then it could also, if you are really struggling, to, maybe you're feeling really depressed, or feeling, anxious to a point where you're not able to do, your normal day-to-day stuff. It could also mean medication. Calmness could also come from medication. It doesn't have to come from, those other activities. It could supplement those other activities. But if you're especially really struggling like never before through this, then it could come from medication. So finding calmness. Medication can also help with your resiliency, because it allows you, a lot of times, for example, patients that really suffer from severe anxiety to a point where they feel debilitated, medication helps their mind to be calm enough to be able to make those next step decisions that we're going to talk about a little bit, for their future, to be able to take that next step, that if they don't take that medication, they're not able to do those things. So medication is absolutely another thing that can help you, on your way of exercising your resiliency muscle. Find ways to relieve your stress in a healthy way. Exercise is definitely a number one, it should be a number one on everyone's list. Exercise is as simple as just walking for, 45 minutes to an hour every single day, 4 to 5 times a week. If you can go for a simple walk outside, that is the best exercise, the relief, a stress relief that you can do for yourself. If you can do other things, then great. If you can't do anything else, first thing in the morning when you wake up, do 15 minutes of light stretches. There is so many, if you don't know what to do, one of the beauties of this happening in this day and age is that we have access to so much information online. Go on YouTube and just, search for light stretch exercises. Do a little bit of light stretching. That can also help, start your day off right. But finding healthy ways to relieve your stress really also helps, to cope with the change, to adjust to whatever is the new norm, and helps in the resiliency process. So, a lot of people, unfortunately, like one of the things that people go to when in the face of adversity is, unfortunately, drugs and alcohol. That people find that is something that can help them, calm down, and that would be a negative way of coping with adversity. So you want to find ways that are healthy enough for you, and if it works for you and it's healthy, then it works, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to check in with somebody else to see if what you're doing is right. If it's healthy, and it helps you, then so be it. Let that be the thing that you do. Also, in our resiliency, as I was mentioning, that it's not all, it doesn't look pretty always. That we have to set aside time for us to be able to acknowledge our negative emotions, acknowledge our difficult emotions that we're having, the difficulty, the uncomfortable feeling that we have with what's going on. It's totally okay to feel depressed about what's happening. It's totally okay and normal to feel anxious about what's happening, about not knowing, we were just talking about 2021 saying, we don't know, we are hoping for the best, but we don't know what's going to happen. We are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine coming out, but that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet. There's so much that's still unknown, but it's okay to acknowledge those uncomfortable, difficult emotions of sadness, of anxiety, depression, panic. Even it's good actually for us to set aside time and acknowledge them, observe them, see them, within us, that this is happening to us and it's okay that we're experiencing these things. That is also a part of the process of helping you become more resilient. When you acknowledge those feelings, when you don't push them aside, or a lot of times shame yourself for feeling them because you think that your neighbor or your sister or your mother or your colleagues are handling things much better, so they must be more resilient than you, and you shame yourself and thinking, why am I feeling depressed? Everybody else seems to be doing fine. Absolutely not. Don't shame yourself for those negative emotions, especially in the face of change and adversity. It's absolutely normal to feel those things. It's human to feel those things. If you don't feel them, I would say it's something to look at, so we have to acknowledge that. And that is also a part of the process that can help us, deal with our emotions. Finding a safe place or a safe person where you can, outwardly talk about those difficult emotions, it can also really help with that process. And we'll get to the social support system a little bit later, but finding a safe place to talk about it and acknowledge and be validated for those difficult emotions is also very important. And when it comes to our feelings and our thoughts, also sometimes we can feel really overwhelmed with everything. So it's important to sit down and recognize, especially for what we're going through right now, acknowledge and be honest with yourself about what is out of your control. Because what's out of your control will be, while some level of worry and sadness about it is normal, but when it's beyond your control, when there's nothing that you can do about it, at some point you have to be honest with yourself. And first of all, stop blaming yourself for something that might be going wrong. Like if you lost your job, it's beyond your control. So many people, millions of people lost their jobs, their businesses throughout. So that was something that was out of your control. If you cannot find another job, it's because right now, as much as people are finding jobs, there's still so much that's going on that many people are staying unemployed still because those jobs were not replaced, So recognize what's out of your control and be honest with yourself about that, because by recognizing that, you also allow yourself to just be. And allowing yourself to just be can also, help you in. It's a part of being resilient, that you acknowledge that this is out of my control. It also helps with those negative thoughts that come to you as you're going through adversity. When you just acknowledge that this is beyond my control, then it helps to, over time, it helps you to feel a little bit calmer. And your social support system is also one of the key factors, I would say, in resiliency. And, right now, I would say, we're blessed to have technology. It's kind of, it's hard to call it a blessing. I'm going to go ahead and call it a blessing because it allows us to connect in so many different ways. Although, yes, it's different if you are alone and you don't have like in-person contact. Yes, it can be different, but the fact that we can connect with each other in groups, with different people, with different organizations, on Facebook, on Instagram, online, on Zoom, I think that is a blessing. So finding social support in the face of adversity is absolutely something that helps build resiliency. And some of the most, like I was thinking about, animals, a lot of groups of animals, when they want to, basically scare off the predators, they stay in groups in order to save themselves. If they go away from the group, there is a chance of them being haunted, like chances that goes really up. So in the wild, they stay together. And as human beings, of course, we also, tend to go towards each other, and we like to be a part of groups and belong. And I think now more than ever, and especially in the face of adversity, it's very important to to find support for different things. One person cannot be everything, to you. So find support for for your emotional needs, find support for your financial needs, find support for different things that come up. You can have different support systems, but it's one of the most important things. It's one of the most important parts of our survival, is to be able to have support from other people. We have great organizations like Multicultural Center that offer so many services. There's so many, and I think we live in a good city where there is a lot of help available, fortunately. So reach out for those for the resources that are available to be able to build that support system. And another thing is planning for the future. To plan for the future, or to be able to see what is the next step, what is the next move that I need to make, however small that may be, is also an important part of resiliency. I'm going to make a side note on this. Sometimes depression gets to a point. Depression can look like, you're not caring about the future, or not being able to do very simple tasks of day to day, like getting out of the bed or taking a shower. If you are at that point where you feel like you don't care about the future, and when I say future, I'm not talking about in 10 years I want to have my own home. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, I don't care if I eat tomorrow, or I don't care in a month if I have a job or not. Who cares if I can pay my bills or not? Things that you have to do in order to survive, but you just can't get yourself to even think about them. That's a clue for you that you need to reach out for help from mental health professionals or organizations that are able to help you. So treating depressive symptoms or depression is an important step, because if you are struggling with that, then there's you can't get yourself to plan for the future. But if you are just experiencing some symptoms and going through this change and adjusting to this change, it is important for you to come up with simple steps, very small things that you can do every single day, and plan for your future. Whether it be, I want to start my own business, I want to, find another job. I like to maybe move from the city. I would like to become more active. Whatever your goals may be, taking small steps that are realistic can help you move forward, and it also helps with the resiliency. One of the groups of people that I've had the privilege of working with has been refugees and immigrants, and I've worked with a lot of them. And one of the most resilient groups of people is immigrants and refugees. When you think about everything that, basically leaving your life and everything that's comfortable, or in a lot of times super uncomfortable for you, and moving to a whole new place. And adjusting, that's one of the biggest changes in life that someone can go through. But then we see how a lot of immigrants, a lot of refugees are able to build their life from the ground up. So plan. That's when someone leaves their homeland and goes through adversity to get to a new place for a better future, that's a step. That's you having hope for the future, taking one step in the face of adversity. So whatever, now I'm not saying that every step is that big, but it could be something very small. It could be as easy as fixing your resume and just, I haven't applied for a job for a long time. How am I going to go about it? Just let me fix my resume. So planning for the future is a good step that gives you hope. And also, having this is my favorite word. It has been my favorite word for a while now, having realistic optimism. There is so much positivity that may not feel relevant to you, because you just, you're faced with so much adversity. You just can't see that positivity that maybe some people want to feel want you to feel. But having realistic optimism, I think it's something that you can give yourself. Realistic part of it being that realistically, there's only so much you can do in a situation that we're in right now. I mean, the whole country, the whole world is struggling. So there is only so much that you can do, and you should expect yourself, to be able to do as much, not more. And then being optimistic just means that you have some hope, some faith that the steps that things can get better. For example, a vaccine is now out, so things could look better very soon. It may not be next month or the next 3 months, but it will eventually change. Something that helps with realistic optimism is looking back at your life and the things that you've struggled with before, and you were able to pull yourself through them. So looking at that can also help you build this realistic optimism that I like to, that's something that I like. You have to stay real while maintaining your optimism. So that can also help. And, remain flexible, cognitively remain flexible with yourself. If you had plans to, I don't know, some doesn't come to my mind something to name, but whatever plans that you had, if it fell through because of what we experienced in the past few months, it's okay. Like, remind yourself that it's okay. Remain flexible, because sometimes when in our thoughts we become so rigid that, I had the plan to finish, whatever work project or whatever goal that I had in my mind by this date, or by 2020 I wanted to be this or do this and I wasn't able to, and now the world is going to end because that kind of thinking will not help you. It doesn't help you. It only gets you down and makes you feel like, it puts you in that black and white thinking of, well, if it didn't happen now, then it can never happen. And that's that's not true. So remain realistic with yourself and remain flexible in your thoughts that, okay, well, maybe I need to adjust a few things, but that I can still put that goal in mind, and take some steps towards it. But I have to remain flexible. The flexibility really is the resilience, because you're able to adjust as opposed to, you're able to bend as opposed to break with every change that comes. And last but not least is to find meaning and find purpose in the face of adversity. I say this with caution, because I struggle, and I don't like to tell people to find the silver lining for something as big as what we're experiencing right now, because sometimes I find it to come across, at least, as very insensitive when you tell people to find silver lining when, let's say, close to 300,000 people have died, so it's not to be insensitive, but it's to find meaning for yourself, at least, in what you're experiencing, the adversity, and to find purpose. We can do that through many different things. Sometimes we can find that through volunteering with different organizations, because we know there are people who need help, and maybe we have something that other people need. So volunteering, donating, if you have the money and you feel people need cash right now more than anything else. So if you find that you're able to donate the cash, then donate. If you find that you can be an advocate for someone or for something, and you can advocacy is also a huge part of the climate that we're experiencing right now, and so many people need advocates to speak up for them, and to basically join them in whatever it is, whatever their cause may be. So find meaning and find purpose through the adversity, through what you're going, whatever your challenges you're facing, so it can help you get through it while you're waiting for the next phase of your life, and whatever they may be. So to sum it all up, to sum up all the exercises that we can do for ourselves to become more resilient, I would say, find one thing for your mental well-being and do that. Find one thing for your physical well-being, and practice that. Find a relationship, whatever that may be, or multiple if you can, as a part of your support system, relationships with organizations, with people, with family, friends, neighbors, whoever that may be, find relationships and connect with people, and also find some sort of greater meaning, bigger than yourself. So that way you have a chance to step out of, yourself and everything that's going on with you and contribute to something bigger than yourself that can, it's been proven time and time again that it helps us when we reach out a hand and help somebody else. So you develop resilience through doing all of these things. You develop it. You're not born with it, but we all develop it as we we practice every time we go through something hard. I read a quote this morning that was very appropriate, so I'd like to end with that. This is by one of my favorite more modern poets, and she wrote, they could take away everything we have, and we'd conjure this beautiful life up all over again with the bones in our backs. Building an empire from the ground up is exactly what we're good at. And I thought that's very appropriate, for as human beings, we have survived many things, and we can definitely, if we are here, we've survived 2020 as well, and we can do, many hard things and not only survive from it, but also thrive. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, Sister Shahrzad, for that informative presentation. And now we will begin the question and answer session of our webinar. So if you have any questions to ask Sister Shahrzad in the text, please text them in the chat below. I have a question. So you spoke about resiliency in relation to all the detrimental moments that have plagued us this year. As a youth, as a young person, what steps can you take now, to grow and fortify your self-resiliency? And are these steps teachable, let's say, to your friends and things like that?
Absolutely. So I'm going to repeat it so people can hear it. As a youth, what can we do to build the resiliency, in the climate that we're in right now? I think that is the best time to build those resilient, resilient muscles, actually. I see a lot of youth being super active in advocacy right now, and nothing makes me happier, honestly. One of the, again, this was kind of a blessing in disguise, because with social media, it's always murky waters. But I don't know if you're familiar with TikTok and if you've seen TikTok and a lot of youth on TikTok, but a lot of advocacy that I'm seeing, I mean, I'm amazed by the creative ways that they have found to be advocates for many different causes, many different causes. So I find that to be one of the, blessings of what's come out of, the past few months. Absolutely. I think when you are, teenagers, when you are younger, that is the best time for you to build that resilient muscle. That's actually a time when you can practice, your brain is still growing in a lot of ways. And that's a time when you can practice those calming methods, I would say. One of the things that I like to talk to my the adolescents that I work with is find what calms you down, because a lot of the adults that I work with, that's what's missing from their youth, that they never learned how to calm down, because sometimes they were told to just get over it. A lot of times they were told to just get over it, or to just, we don't cry, we don't show emotions. So find ways that where you can calm yourself down, where you can remain calm. Those are the things that will help you get through adversity, because adversity is always going to come into your life one way or another. So I would say those two things would be the most important for youth. Find ways where they can remain calm and centered for themselves, and also see, because the youth is the future, or is the now, which, however way you look at it. And find ways where things that you're passionate about, things that you like to advocate for, things that you like to, that's basically you planning for the future, to read up about things, become advocates, become volunteers. A lot of people need help right now, and see how you can, it's also a great practice to teach youth to not be self-centered and step out of themselves and into the community and contribute to the community that they live in. So I think those are the best things that you can do. You can teach youth to do in the face of adversity.
Very good. How do you maintain mental health and resiliency in the middle of a major crisis?
Do you say how do you
Yes.
maintain?
How do you maintain mental health and resiliency in the middle of a major crisis? I mean, most people may be thinking about resiliency at the end of a crisis, but like, how do you, in the middle of the storm, how do you maintain that resiliency?
I don't know about you, but I consider us still in the middle of the storm. So I think we are still in the middle of the storm. So I don't consider us being out of it yet. And no, resiliency is not something that you do looking back. Like, you don't look back at something you went through and say, oh, I was resilient. You can do that to remind yourself that you are resilient. So right now, all of us that are experiencing, some sort of change or struggling with something can look back in our lives and probably find something or some place in our life where we struggled so much and we were able to pull ourselves through it. And that's to remind us we are resilient. We can get through this. But it's not something that you do always at the end. You do all of these steps that I just talked about are things I would like for you to do right now. These are the things that we actually, it's sort of like, it's practice for us. Like, if everything was great, is not the time for you to practice resiliency. We get resilient as we face those these traumas and challenges and adversity. So now is the time to practice those things, and that's how we get through the challenge. That's how we get through the storm, which, again, some people might disagree with me, but I think we're still in the storm. The storm hasn't passed. So now, and that's why I wanted to talk about it right now, because I think it's important that, even because sometimes what happens, and especially now, a lot of people rightfully are very tired of hearing about, the coronavirus and hearing about so many different things that have happened. And we get to this place where we feel burned out and we feel just like, I don't want to hear about this, anymore. But we kind of get to this place. Some people might get into this place of, okay, it's at the end of the year, so beginning January 1st, things are going to suddenly become really better. That New Year's resolution, new me, and all of that. I might look a little bit different this year, but it's important to recognize that no, we are, I think, still in the storm, and it's important for us now to exercise and build our resiliency muscle, if we've never had to, which I doubt it. I think everyone has probably experienced something, but develop the resiliency. You are resilient. Know that you are. If you have gone through what all of us have experienced in the past few months, you are resilient, and you can get better at this, and get yourself ready for whatever it is that might come, and also retain some of your or all of your optimism, and for some good things that can happen. Always save space in your brain for all the good things that can happen, as well as remaining flexible to what may not be something, what may not be pleasant, about what we may experience. That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's very good. So I'm already learning a lot, by the way. So very good. How do you cope with the feeling of distress and being distressed following a major setback? How do you not shame yourself if you're for how you're feeling at the time?
So some people might jump into just wanting to ignore it, or when something happens, and we face a setback, and maybe we talk to somebody and they're like, oh, well, it's okay, just let's go do something. So people really feel uncomfortable with sitting down with somebody who is feeling uncomfortable, so they immediately want to mask it up in some way. And people are generally well-intentioned, I must add. People are well-intentioned, but and sometimes we do that to ourselves. We're like, oh, well, let me forget about this and let me go start doing something to forget about it. We want to forget about it as soon as possible. We want to forget about whatever challenge that we've had, setback that we've had. But I think one of the most helpful things that you can is actually reflect on the setback that you've had. Reflecting on yourself, on your emotions, that you're going through, and also reflecting on what happened. Why did it happen? And also be honest with yourself. I talked about the things that are out of our control when we are dealing with with adversity. Make a list of the things that were out of your control when you experienced the setback, and the things that you can change. Because worrying about and being sad and depressed about the things that you have no control over or that you cannot change is really a waste of your time. You can spend a day or two feeling sorry for yourself. I think that's fine. I think it's human. We all do it. But anything more than that, to where you really feel paralyzed, I would say, because you're shaming yourself, because you're blaming yourself, is really not productive. So make a list. What was out of my control in this situation? Right now, I want to again remind people there is a lot that's out of our control. Whether we like it or not, there is a lot that's out of our control, but we have also a lot that's in our control. So what can I do? If I had a setback, what is the next step that I can do, however small that may be? What is the step that I can take to make sure that I can eventually come back from this? We need to give ourselves time when we have setback. Again, it also depends on how major the setback is. I'm talking very general, but it could be many things. Give ourselves time, I would say. Definitely acknowledge and reflect on what happened. Reflecting on what happened, mindfully reflecting on what happened, helps you recognize the steps, see the steps. Where did maybe I went wrong somewhere? Where did I go wrong? And what can I learn from it? Not to blame yourself. Where did I go wrong? We are all human. We make mistakes. But what can I learn from it, so that the next time I try something, that I can, do it better? Sometimes in the reflection process, you might find that maybe you're having a hard time seeing it. Talk to someone you trust. Talk to someone that you trust their judgments, basically. Talk to a professional if you can, and see, sometimes we can't see it, but somebody looking from the outside can help us see, well, maybe this is something you can do differently, or maybe this is where things went wrong. So it helps to have an outsider perspective if you can get one. But you also are a good judge you can be a good judge of your own actions. So reflect on your own setbacks.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Shahrzad. I'd like to sincerely thank you for your effective presentation. And thank you all for tuning in to Family First Center weekly webinar. Again, be sure to meet us here each week, where we'll be discussing a different topic every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, everybody.